We spend so much of life pushing, forcing, chasing, grinding, trying to make things happen faster, better, on our own terms. But what if peace doesn't come from effort, but from ease? What if the more you try to control life, the more it slips through your fingers? That's what the Stoics understood. That real strength isn't in forcing outcomes. It's in flowing with reality. It's in trusting timing. It's in letting go of resistance and choosing presence over pressure. You weren't made to live clenched, desperate, always trying to bend the world to your will. You were made for clarity, calm, and purpose. In this episode, we'll break down 10 Stoic lessons that show you exactly how to stop forcing life and start living with peace. You'll learn how to be fully present, how to accept what you can't change, and how to reconnect with the parts of you that pressure tried to silence. This isn't just theory. These are tools to rebuild your mindset, one quiet, powerful step at a time. If you're new here, welcome to Stoic Reflections. Hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's walk this path together towards stillness, strength, and peace. 1. Live fully in the present. You've heard it before, be present. But it's more than just a catchy phrase. It's the root of peace. Because the moment you leave the now, you begin to suffer. You start obsessing over the future, replaying the past, building expectations that crumble, or fears that haven't even happened. And suddenly you're not living. You're surviving a life that doesn't even exist yet. The Stoics knew this trap well. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present, not because the future isn't real, but because it's not yours, not yet." The only place you hold any true power is right here, in this exact breath, in this precise second. But most of us are never really here. We rush through our days, always on to the next thing. We eat while scrolling, walk while worrying, listen while planning what to say next. Our minds are scattered across the moments that don't even belong to us. And in doing that, we miss life. We miss the richness of what's actually happening. The sunlight, the silence, the conversation, the simple grace of being alive right now. Presence isn't a technique, it's a return. A coming home to what is, without needing to escape, fix, or force it. When you live fully in the present, you stop demanding that life look a certain way. You start seeing it as it actually is. And from that clarity comes calm. The future loses its grip. The past loses its weight. You stop being pulled by what was or what might be, and you settle into what is. That's not passivity, that's power. Because in this space, you can choose. You can breathe. You can respond instead of react. You can act with intention instead of impulse. The Stoics didn't tell you to ignore the future. They just taught you not to live in it. Plan if you must. Prepare if it helps. But don't mistake projection for presence. Don't let your entire life be a rehearsal for moments that never come. Because one day all those tomorrows you were waiting for will be gone. And what will you have missed today? The one moment you ever truly own. So how do you start living in the present? Slow down. Notice your body, your breath, your thoughts. When your mind drifts, bring it back, over and over again. Not because you're doing it wrong, but because that's the practice, the return. Every time you catch yourself lost in a mental movie, gently come back to the moment like it's sacred, because it is. That's where your life is happening. That's where your power lives. That's where peace begins. Living fully in the present isn't about perfection. It's about participation. It's about showing up for your own life. Not someday, but now. Not when things are better, but exactly as they are. Because this moment is enough. And when you learn to see it, really see it, you realize so are you. 2. Understand the impermanence of life. Everything you love, everything you fear, everything you're chasing or avoiding, it will all pass. That's not meant to depress you. It's meant to set you free. The Stoics looked at impermanence not as something to mourn, but as something to understand deeply. Because when you accept that nothing lasts, not the highs, not the lows, You stop clinging so tightly. You stop panicking when good moments fade or bad ones arrive. You begin to live with clarity, with grace, and with a quiet kind of courage that only comes from knowing, this too shall pass. Marcus Aurelius wrote, all is ephemeral, fame and the famous as well. Meaning everything you're stressed about right now won't matter forever. Even the most intense emotions, the most unbearable circumstances, they move, they change. And when you really see that, when you truly internalize it, you loosen your grip. You stop wasting your energy trying to make temporary things permanent. You stop expecting stability from what was never meant to stay. That's not cynicism, it's wisdom. It's seeing life as it is, not as you wish it to be. But this principle doesn't just apply to pain, it applies to joy too. When you realize that everything is temporary, you begin to cherish what's in front of you more deeply. You listen better, you love harder, you slow down because you know this moment won't repeat itself. You understand that the people you care about won't be here forever, and neither will you. And instead of that being sad, it becomes sacred, because you know it's limited, because you know it matters more because it won't last. The Stoics didn't fear death or loss. They used those truths to sharpen their focus. They asked themselves daily, if I knew this was my last day, how would I treat it? Not to be dramatic, but to stay awake. Because most people sleepwalk through their lives, waiting for the right moment to live fully. But impermanence destroys that illusion. It reminds you that the right moment is now, that every second wasted in regret or fear is a second you don't get back. When you embrace impermanence, your grip on life becomes lighter, but your appreciation becomes deeper. You stop demanding things last forever. You stop needing constant guarantees, and you start meeting life with softness instead of fear, because you know it's always moving, and your job is not to freeze it in place, but to dance with it while it's here. So the next time something beautiful enters your life, don't rush to possess it. Just be present. Enjoy it. Let it shape you. And when it's time to let it go, do so without bitterness. Because what's meant to stay will stay, and what's meant to pass will pass. And in between there is peace. That's the heart of Stoic wisdom. Not resisting change, but riding it with open eyes and open hands. 3. Embrace the power of acceptance. There's a kind of peace that doesn't come from fixing everything. It comes from accepting what is, not in defeat, not in weakness, but in clarity. The Stoics knew that suffering doesn't begin with events. It begins with resistance, with the way we say, this shouldn't be happening, or why me? That mental friction, the refusal to let reality be reality, is what tears us up inside. But the moment you stop fighting the facts, the moment you release the illusion of control over the uncontrollable, you gain something far more powerful. Inner freedom. Epictetus said, seek not for events to happen as you wish, but wish for events to happen as they do, and your life will go smoothly. That's not passivity, it's alignment. It's understanding that life will not always bend to your plans. People will change. Situations will surprise you. Pain will come. And trying to micromanage every outcome only leads to exhaustion. But when you accept what you cannot control and focus your energy on how you respond, you step into your real strength. You stop being a victim of circumstances and start becoming the master of your mindset. Acceptance isn't saying you like what's happening. It's saying, this is what is. Now, what do I choose? That space between what happens and what you do with it, that's where Stoic power lives. Life will test you with things you didn't ask for. Rejection, delay, loss. But the wise don't crumble under those moments. They remain rooted because they've trained their minds to bend without breaking. They've learned to say, I didn't want this, but I can handle it. I will adapt. I will respond. And here's the truth. Most of what causes us stress isn't the situation itself. It's the mental story we build around it. This isn't fair. This always happens to me. Things should be different. That inner noise pulls us out of presence, out of logic, and into suffering. Acceptance silences that noise. It doesn't mean you stop growing. or that you become passive. It means you work with reality, not against it. You flow with what is, instead of drowning in what should be. When you truly embrace acceptance, you gain access to a deeper kind of peace, a peace that doesn't depend on everything going your way, a peace that isn't shaken by unexpected turns or unmet expectations. Because you've stopped demanding that life behave, and instead you've trained yourself to respond with wisdom, not reaction. So next time you feel that tension in your chest, that urge to control, to fix, to force, pause. Ask yourself, what's within my control here? If it's not your thoughts, your actions, your character, then maybe it's not yours to carry. Maybe your task is not to resist, but to realign, to adapt, to breathe. That's not giving up. That's rising up. That's Stoicism in motion. Quiet, firm, resilient, and absolutely free. 4. Learn to let go. Letting go sounds simple, but in practice it's one of the hardest things you'll ever do. We hold on to so much. People who've left, opportunities that passed, mistakes we made, versions of ourselves that no longer fit. And why? Because we believe that holding on gives us control. That if we just keep thinking about it, worrying over it, clinging to it, we can somehow fix it, rewind it, or make it mean something. But the truth is, holding on is what's hurting you. Not the event, not the loss, not the failure, the refusal to release it. And the Stoics knew this better than anyone. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. Let your impulse be simply to do what is just and speak what is true." That same clarity applies to what we carry emotionally. If it no longer serves you, if it poisons your peace, clouds your judgment, or weakens your focus, it has no place in your mind. Letting go isn't quitting. It's choosing peace over pain, reality over fantasy, growth over attachment. But we often confuse attachment with meaning. We think, if I let this go, it means it didn't matter. But it did matter. That relationship, that dream, that moment, it shaped you. It taught you. It marked a chapter. But not every chapter is meant to last forever. Some are meant to close so a stronger one can begin. The Stoics didn't cling to what had passed. They honored it. They learned from it. And then they released it. Because they understood that clinging to what's gone only prevents you from receiving what's next. Letting go doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you feel fully and then release. It means you trust that what's meant for you will align and what's not will drift away. It means you stop wasting energy on what you can't revive and start investing it in who you're becoming. Think about how much weight you're carrying mentally. Conversations you keep replaying. Decisions you keep doubting. People you keep chasing in your mind. Now imagine what would happen if you put that weight down. Who could you be if you weren't so tied to what already left? The Stoic path is about movement, forward, steady, unburdened. It's about recognizing when something has run its course and having the strength to let it go with grace, not bitterness. Because everything you're clinging to is costing you something. Time, energy, clarity. And the longer you hold on, the less space you have for what's truly yours. So practice letting go. Not with anger, but with acceptance. Not with coldness, but with wisdom. Say to yourself, this is no longer mine to carry, and then breathe. Step back into your own life. Reclaim your energy. Rebuild your focus. Because you are not defined by what left. You are defined by what you choose to hold on to. And when you choose peace, you choose power. That's Stoicism. That's freedom. 5. Practice mindfulness. Your mind is a traveler. It drifts into the past, replays old conversations, relives old wounds. Then it skips ahead into imagined futures, anxious what-ifs, and fears that haven't even happened. And while your thoughts race across time, your life, your real life, is happening now. In this breath, in this moment. That's why the Stoics emphasize presence. Because the more scattered your mind becomes, the more disconnected you feel from yourself. Mindfulness isn't just meditation or stillness. It's the practice of returning, again and again, to what is, to what matters, to what's real. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And you can't master yourself if you don't notice your thoughts, if you don't catch your patterns, if you don't step back and observe what's going on in your own head. Mindfulness gives you that space. It's not about silencing your thoughts. It's about witnessing them without becoming them. When you start seeing your mind like a sky, clear, vast, steady, you realize that thoughts are just passing clouds, some dark, some bright, none of them permanent, none of them you. Most people live on autopilot, reacting, scrolling, complaining, escaping. They don't pause to notice how they feel, what they're thinking, or why they're doing what they're doing. And that unconsciousness leads to chaos, both inside and out. But mindfulness invites you to slow down, to pay attention, to sit with discomfort instead of running from it, to appreciate a moment instead of skipping past it. And that simple shift in awareness, it changes everything. It makes your life real again. Stoic mindfulness is different from passive observation. It's active presence. It's asking, is what I'm thinking helping me? Is this feeling aligned with reason or just reaction? Am I here or just going through the motions? It's about becoming the watcher of your own experience, not to control it, but to understand it. Because with understanding comes power. You can't change what you refuse to notice. But once you notice, you can choose. You can respond instead of react. You can hold steady instead of getting swept away. And mindfulness doesn't require perfect stillness or hours of silence. It starts small. When you drink your coffee, just drink your coffee. Don't scroll. Don't plan. Just taste it. When you walk, walk. Feel your feet on the ground. Notice the air. When you're angry, pause. Ask yourself where it's coming from. When you're sad, breathe. Let it be there without judgment. Every one of these moments is an invitation to come home to yourself, to stop chasing peace in the future and realize it's already here. You just have to notice it. Practicing mindfulness won't solve all your problems, but it will change how you carry them, with more grace, with more intention, with more clarity. That's the essence of Stoic presence. Not escaping your thoughts, but guiding them. Not avoiding life, but actually living it. And in that practice, moment by moment, you begin to uncover the calm that was always within you. Quiet, powerful, present, stoic. 6. Use silence. Effectively, silence is an emptiness. It's space, and in that space lives your power. The Stoics knew that not everything requires a response, and not every thought needs to be spoken. In fact, the more reactive you are with your words, the more you leak energy, clarity, and control. But when you learn to sit in silence, not just externally, but internally, you begin to tap into something far stronger than noise: wisdom. Because silence isn't absence, it's presence. It's the place where real thought begins and ego ends. Seneca said, "Speech, even when necessary, should be measured." And yet, in today's world, we've been conditioned to fill every gap with commentary, reaction, or noise. We talk to avoid discomfort. We respond just to be heard. We explain ourselves endlessly, trying to be understood by people who aren't even listening. But silence breaks that pattern. It creates distance between impulse and action, between offense and response, between emotion and expression. And that distance, that's where your Stoic discipline lives. The modern mind resists silence. It rushes to fill every pause, scrolling, venting, overtalking. But the Stoic mind embraces the pause. It knows that silence is where reflection grows, where clarity sharpens, where the mind recalibrates. You don't need to respond to every criticism. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to rush to speak just because there's a gap. Sometimes the strongest thing you can say is nothing. And this applies not only to words, but to thoughts. Inner silence is the art of choosing which thoughts are worth following, When you sit quietly and observe your mind without reacting, you begin to see how much noise is unnecessary, worries that don't belong to you, arguments that never happen, scenarios that won't matter in a week. In silence, those things lose their grip. You create room for presence, logic, and calm to enter. But let's be clear, silence isn't passive, it's active restraint. It's the conscious choice to hold your voice when it's more powerful to wait. It's strength under control. It's walking away from the argument. Not because you're weak, but because you've already won by not being pulled into chaos. And ironically, when you master silence, your words carry more weight. People listen more closely because they know you speak with intention, not noise. So how do you use silence effectively? Start small. Pause before replying. Breathe before reacting. Ask yourself, does this need to be said? And does it need to be said by me? Right now? Practice stillness in moments of tension. Watch your mind without jumping into every thought it offers. Over time, silence will stop feeling awkward and start feeling like power. Because in a loud world, silence is radical. It's disciplined. It's rare. And that makes it one of your greatest Stoic tools. Not to avoid life, but to move through it with precision. Not to hide, but to hold. To ground yourself. To speak only when your words serve your values, not your ego. That's the true power of silence. And when used well, it speaks louder than any noise ever could. 7. Enjoy the journey, not just the outcome. Most people are chasing something. Success, recognition, the perfect relationship, the perfect body, the next milestone. And while there's nothing wrong with aiming high, Stoicism reminds us that obsession with the outcome often robs us of the experience. We become so fixated on arriving that we forget to live the steps in between. But here's the truth. There is no final destination where life magically becomes perfect. Peace doesn't exist in the future. It exists in how you walk today's path. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Give yourself a gift, the present moment." Why? Because every goal, every dream, every accomplishment, none of it happens in the future. It happens in the process. It's the discipline in the early hours, the patience during slow progress, the quiet wins no one sees. And if you don't learn to love those parts, you'll spend your life waiting to feel fulfilled, only to find that even when you arrive, you still feel empty. The Stoics taught that the reward is not in reaching the top of the mountain, it's in who you become as you climb. Chasing outcomes can be addictive. You start thinking, when I finally get this, I'll be happy. But that mindset keeps pushing happiness further away. Because even when you get what you want, the mind finds a new target, a new craving, a new reason to delay peace. Stoicism says, stop postponing your life. Start finding joy in effort, in progress, in showing up. Because the process is not just the path, it is the point. Learning to enjoy the journey doesn't mean you abandon goals. It means you detach your identity from them. You no longer tie your worth to results. You don't need success to justify your effort. You train yourself to value the work itself, the practice, the routine, the challenge. Why? Because that's where you grow. That's where you build character. That's where you develop the resilience and clarity that no outcome can give you. And when you shift into that mindset, something beautiful happens. Pressure fades. You stop panicking over delays. You stop comparing your pace to others. You start respecting your rhythm, your timing, your progress. Every step becomes meaningful, even the hard ones, even the messy ones, because you're no longer sprinting toward a finish line, you're walking with presence. So how do you start enjoying the journey? You anchor yourself in the daily process. You ask, what's in my control today? And do it with care. You take pride in the effort, not the applause. You let go of needing things to move faster or smoother, and instead, show up with patience. And you remind yourself often, peace is not a prize at the end of the race. It's how you choose to run. The Stoics didn't avoid ambition. They just made sure it didn't own them. They taught us to set goals, but not to worship them. To move forward, but not to rush. To build steadily, but not to lose our soul in the process. Because in the end, life isn't something you win. It's something you live, one mindful, purposeful, peaceful step at a time. 8. Find joy in the simplest things. We're taught to chase more. Bigger goals, fancier things, busier schedules. As if happiness is hiding behind achievement, behind status, behind some perfect version of success. But the Stoics knew the truth. Peace doesn't live in the extraordinary. It lives in the ordinary. It's not found in what's rare or glamorous, but in what's present. A warm drink, a quiet morning, a breath of fresh air, a meaningful conversation. These aren't small things, they're everything. And the moment you start noticing them, your entire life begins to shift. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." Because the endless craving for more blinds you to what's already here. You rush past the beauty of now chasing some distant better. You fill your days with noise, distraction, comparison, and miss the calm that's right in front of you. But when you slow down and pay attention, you start to see it. The richness of a moment, the depth in something simple, the silent strength in stillness. That's where true joy begins. And here's what's wild. The more you practice this kind of presence, the more abundance you feel. Not because you gained more, but because you finally noticed what you already have. The taste of food when you actually sit and enjoy it. The feeling of your feet on the ground during a walk. The soft breeze against your face. A laugh shared. A deep breath. These things cost nothing, but they give everything. When you start finding joy in them, your need for external validation, extreme entertainment, or constant achievement starts to fade. The Stoics weren't against ambition, but they understood moderation. They knew that real freedom comes when your happiness isn't tied to what's next, but rooted in what's now. They trained themselves to enjoy simplicity, not because they were denying life, but because they were finally experiencing it. And that experience, stripped of noise, stripped of demand, is where clarity lives, where gratitude blooms, where the noise dies down and the real you starts to speak. Most of your peace isn't missing, it's just buried under distraction. You've trained your mind to overlook simple joys because they're not impressive enough. But impression is for others. Joy is for you. And you can reclaim it right now. You don't need a vacation. You don't need a promotion. You don't need a perfect anything. You just need to notice what's already good, what's already working, what's quietly offering you a chance to feel alive again. So pause, look around. Find one thing, tiny, quiet, normal, that brings you joy. Let that be enough. Not because you're settling, but because you're finally seeing. You're finally here, you're finally free. Because joy that depends on more will always be temporary. But joy found in simplicity, that's sustainable. That's powerful. That's stoic. 9. Master the art of gratitude. Gratitude isn't just about saying thank you. It's about shifting the entire lens through which you see the world. The Stoics understood that your mind will always find what it looks for. If you focus on what's missing, what's unfair, or what you haven't achieved yet, your life will feel empty no matter how much you gain. But if you train yourself to see what's already present, what's already working, your life becomes full, even if nothing externally changes. That's the power of gratitude. It doesn't wait for life to be perfect. It makes what you have enough. Epictetus said, "He is a wise man who does not grieve for the things which he has not, but rejoices for those which he has." That's not about lowering your standards. It's about raising your awareness. Gratitude is discipline. It's not a feeling you wait for. It's a practice you build. And when you make it a habit, your whole internal world transforms. You stop measuring your worth by how much you accumulate. You stop comparing your path to someone else's. You stop needing more to feel whole because you realize everything you really need to feel peace is already within reach. Most people don't lack blessings. They lack perspective. They wake up in good health and never acknowledge it. They have people who care about them, but focus on who doesn't. They have enough to get by, but spend energy envying those who have more. This mindset leads to constant discontent, but gratitude interrupts that loop. It says a stop. Look, you're already holding pieces of the life you once hoped for. And when you actually see those pieces, not just in theory but in your gut, you begin to feel a kind of grounded peace that can't be shaken by setbacks or delays. Gratitude doesn't mean pretending everything's perfect. It means choosing to focus on what's good, even in the midst of struggle. It means recognizing that peace isn't the result of having it all, but of not needing it all to feel complete. And here's the Stoic secret. The more you practice gratitude, the more resilient you become. You're less rattled by disappointment, less hooked by what others have, less desperate for validation, because your focus is inward, rooted, stable. You know what matters. You know what lasts. So how do you master gratitude? Start small and be specific. Don't just say, I'm grateful. Say, I'm grateful for this warm light coming through the window. I'm grateful for the strength in my legs today. I'm grateful for a mind that still wants to grow. Write it down. Say it out loud. Notice it in real time. Make gratitude an active part of your day, not just a moment at Thanksgiving. Because when you stop obsessing over what's missing and start celebrating what's present, you step into the kind of life the Stoics lived daily. Not perfect, but grounded. Not easy, but clear. Not filled with more, but rich with enough. And that, in the end, is what makes gratitude more than a virtue. It makes it a way of being, a shield against anxiety, a compass toward peace, a practice that quietly rewires your mind to see, feel, and live better. Stoic, strong, whole. 10. Appreciate solitude. Solitude isn't loneliness. It's not isolation. It's not being disconnected from others. It's being reconnected to yourself. The Stoics didn't fear being alone. They embraced it, because they understood that only in solitude can you hear your own thoughts clearly. Only in silence can you reflect without interruption. Only away from the noise of the world can you return to your center. And that return, that stillness, is where wisdom begins to whisper and peace begins to grow. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "People look for retreats for themselves in the country, by the sea, in the mountains. But nowhere can a person find a retreat more peaceful or more free from trouble than in his own soul." He wasn't encouraging escape. He was pointing to something deeper, the ability to be alone with yourself without fear, without distraction, without the constant need to be entertained or validated. Because when you can sit in solitude, fully present and unbothered, you've found something most people never touch: freedom. In today's world, solitude is rare. We're surrounded by constant stimulation, notifications, conversations, noise. And when we're not around people, we're still not alone. We're scrolling, consuming, reacting, always connected to something outside. But Stoicism invites us to disconnect from that noise so we can reconnect inward. Because if you never spend time with your own mind, how will you ever understand it? If you're always reacting, how will you ever reflect? Solitude gives you space to ask real questions. Who am I without my roles? What do I believe when no one's watching? What values am I truly living by? These aren't easy questions, but they're essential ones. And only in solitude can you explore them honestly, without the mask we wear in front of others. That's why the Stoics saw solitude not as emptiness, but as preparation, as training, as the forge where your character is refined. But solitude also heals. It gives you back your energy. It softens your nervous system. It helps you see clearly what really matters and what was just noise all along. It teaches you to enjoy your own company, not because you've given up on people, but because you've learned that your peace isn't dependent on anyone else. That kind of independence doesn't make you cold. It makes you whole. So how do you appreciate solitude in a noisy world? Start small. Turn off the noise for 10 minutes a day. Walk without your phone. Sit without distraction. Journal without an audience. And most importantly, resist the urge to escape your thoughts. Face them. Learn from them. Let them settle. Because only in that space can clarity emerge. The Stoics knew that solitude wasn't a retreat from life. It was how you prepare to face it with more strength, more intention, more calm. It's where you charge your spirit, refine your direction, and remind yourself you are enough as you are in this moment, without anyone else's input. That's not loneliness. That's power. That's peace. That's stoic solitude. And it's yours whenever you choose to return to it. You don't need to force life to find peace. You don't need to chase it, control it, or shape it into something perfect. The Stoics remind us that peace is already within reach. It lives in presence, in letting go, in accepting what is, and in slowing down enough to notice the quiet beauty of this moment. Life moves fast, but when you choose to live intentionally, when you stop reacting and start reflecting, you begin to realize nothing is missing. You just needed to see more clearly. These 10 lessons aren't theories, they're practices. You won't master them all at once, but every small shift you make toward gratitude, toward stillness, toward simplicity, brings you closer to that deep inner calm that no chaos can touch. Don't wait for life to slow down to feel peace. Practice peace within the speed. That's what makes you unshakable. That's what makes you truly free. If this episode helped you reconnect with yourself, don't forget to subscribe to Stoic Reflections, hit the like button, and drop a comment below sharing which Stoic lesson resonated with you most. Your presence here matters, and your journey toward peace is worth every step.